It's that time of year again. Looking back, 2014 was a genuinely great year for Nintendo, especially when it came to getting more quality titles to fill the slowly growing Wii U library. 2014 was also the start of expanding my channel to content from all Nintendo franchises, making this year even more fun to experience both personally and with my videos. Today, I'm gonna go through my favorite Nintendo games of the year. As always, this is just a personal list with my personal preferences. Starting off this year's list a little differently, I want to go over a few honorable mentions. For one, while I have been able to play through almost every major Nintendo release so far this year, there are a few downloadable titles that I've missed out on, such as Azure Striker Gunvolt and Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, which both look excellent. Then, there are games that I just haven't been able to complete yet, but I still really like. Of those, there are two that I'm really into right now. Persona Q is an awesome labyrinth-based JRPG that blends tons of mechanics from Persona 3 and 4 with Etrian Odyssey. Even though they aren't Nintendo games, I highly recommend checking out both Persona 3 and 4 before playing this one. I've always been a fan of the Pokemon-like capture and creation of Persona creatures to fight with, and this game adds more combination options for a humongous cast of characters. I'm about 15 hours in and I've really dug what I've played so far, but there's no way I can finish a giant JRPG like this anytime soon. The other game I've just started and really love is Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call. Again, I haven't had enough time with this one to place it on a list, but I just picked it up for Christmas and it's been extremely addicting so far. The 3DS needs more rhythm games for real, but at least one of the ones it has is really good, with tons of classic Final Fantasy pieces and cutesy visuals. My final honorable mention goes to Shovel Knight, which honestly might be my favorite game of the year. It's a 2D platformer built around themes of classics like Mega Man and Castlevania, but its level design and fair challenge make it one of the best 2D platformers I've ever played, both classic and modern. The only thing keeping me from dropping it on this list is that I can't in good conscience say that it's my favorite Nintendo game of the year. Did it launch on a Nintendo platform? Absolutely, but it also cross-launched on the PC, and it's coming to PS4 soon as well. Don't get me wrong, I have absolutely zero problem with a game coming to multiple platforms, and Shovel Knight deserves multiple platforms, but in keeping with each year's Nintendo-themed list, it just didn't feel right to include it, even though I really wanted to. Without further ado though, here's my main list. I'm going off the US release date calendar, so you might have played some of these games before 2014 if you live overseas.
Number 10.
Hyrule Warriors. Hyrule Warriors is exactly what I expected it to be. It's not a Zelda game, it's a Dynasty Warriors game with a Legend of Zelda Universe skin. And you know what? It's a darn good Dynasty Warriors game with a Legend of Zelda Universe skin. Tearing apart hordes of Zelda enemies while controlling characters that have never been playable before provides a release that's uncomparable. It's dumb fun at face value, but there's actually a lot of strategy when it comes to capturing keeps and managing troops across a humongous battlefield. I'm a little bummed that the gameplay dips in frame rate when playing co-op with another player on the gamepad screen, but shouting orders alongside a friend while you divide the battlefield is still a very rewarding shared experience. Unlocking every character and weapon is a humongous undertaking, bound to take hundreds of hours from the most dedicated players.
Number 9.
Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Poor Tropical Freeze was probably overlooked by many this year, and honestly I can't blame you. The 2D platformer has been done to death on Nintendo platforms, but that doesn't stop Tropical Freeze from being one of the better ones released this year. Tropical Freeze brings in a few new tricks not yet seen in the excellent Country Returns, the main ones being Dixie Kong's hair lift and Cranky Kong, aka Scrooge McDuck. Choosing between different side characters to optimally navigate levels and uncover treasure is a blast. While I, like many other Nintendo fans, am waiting patiently for Retro Studios to work on a Wii U Metroid Prime title, you can't deny that they can develop fun and deep platformers.
Number 8.
Professor Layton and the Azran Legacy, alongside Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright. I've decided to lump both of these games together because they're both so similar. Azran Legacy was fitting as the 6th and final game to close the main Professor Layton story. I know all Professor Layton games are largely the same, following the incredibly dapper Layton through mythical journeys while solving touchscreen puzzles. But the game's story does an especially good job of tying together loose ends while bridging into the original Layton trilogy. Layton vs. Wright, on the other hand, is an equally great game that I've been waiting nearly 2 years to come since the game's Japanese release. It's definitely more influenced by Professor Layton's gameplay than Phoenix Wright's, but the thought-provoking court cases are still full of unexpected twists. Battling with two different protagonists of logic in a world where magic is everywhere is a fun challenge, and I'll honestly never get tired of playing these logic-driven games. Layton vs. Wright is especially bittersweet when you consider that we won't likely see either protagonist for a while. The next Ace Attorney game is a prequel, while the next Layton game is... Let's not talk about that right now. But if it is truly the last year of Herschel Layton, it's been the perfect send-off for him.
Number 7.
Bravely Default. Now here's a weird game to put on this list. Japan got the original game in 2012. Then Europe got the game in 2013. So even though people kept asking me why this game didn't make last year's list, I didn't get to play it until February of 2014. And it was worth the wait. Bravely Default is a class-based RPG that plays like the Final Fantasies of old, and that's a good thing. Instead of flashy graphics and cutscenes, the focus of Bravely Default is all in the combat. There are so many crazy combinations. Every character has a class, a subclass, and side abilities that can be selected from any class they've previously leveled. There's also a ton of features that involve working with friends and street passes to make leveling up classes much easier. Combining that with gear and different special abilities would be wild enough, but the game is built entirely around a unique tempo system where you can take multiple turns at once at the cost of losing future turns. This is a crazy unique system that begs to be solved and broken, and it can be. But for fans of traditional JRPG combat, this is as good as it gets. Where the game loses me a little is the abysmal final chapters, which force you to fight all of the game's bosses again and again and again. It's just wrong, and it turns the closing chapter of an otherwise incredible game into a little bit of a drag. But from a gameplay perspective, I can't deny that Bravely Default was an incredibly engrossing adventure for most of the game.
Number 6.
Kirby Triple Deluxe. Every Kirby game follows the same premise. Kirby eats things and gets abilities, but Triple Deluxe has a ton that makes it feel all its own. For one, new abilities have so many different attacks that it's just silly. Sure, you can always button mash your way through the game, but if you're looking to get the most out of everything, just check out your attack list. The sword alone has 4 pages of different attack commands that you can learn. On top of that is the new Hypernova ability central to the game's plot, which allows Kirby's Inhale to enter Super Saiyan levels. This seems overpowered, but instead the game cleverly designs all of its stages around clever puzzles and challenges that rely on Hypernova. It feels powerful, but it still forces you to think carefully. Add to that a ton of bonus modes on the side, such as a miniature Smash Bros-like battle arena and a DDD rhythm game, and you've got yourself a charming portable adventure well worth a spot on your 3DS library.
Number 5.
Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Remember those gimmick stages you ran into every once in a while in Super Mario 3D World? They decided to make a full game out of it, and guess what? It's really good. Captain Toad looks basic on the outside, even so much that fans believed that the reduced $40 price tag was too much to pay. But honestly, this game has the depth and level design of a fully priced release, making it a, pun intended, gem of a puzzle game for Nintendo this year. Captain Toad has the, ironically enough, Kirby philosophy, where completing levels is often easy, but finding all the treasure is extremely challenging. Every stage feels like it's been designed with a fresh mechanic, and with over 80 courses, it's an absolute joy to play. Everything is colorful, cheery, and genuinely calming.
Number 4.
Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 is undoubtedly my favorite game in the series now. It's the perfect blend of old kart racing and item throwing that you've seen over the past few decades. The new items are smartly designed, the new courses feel like instant classics, the multiple bikes come with their own unique feel, and 12 maximum racers instead of 8 multiplies the chaos in the perfect way. The online multiplayer works great too, making it easy to hop into a group of a dozen players from across the world at any point. Perhaps the number one way that Mario Kart 8 excels though is presentation. I still believe that this is the most beautiful game on the Wii U in terms of graphical polish and colorful design. This isn't something that I've ever really commended a game on before, but Mario Kart 8 also has some of the best DLC I've ever seen, offering a huge amount of fun new tracks that actually increased my enjoyment of the full game right when it was starting to feel just a little repetitive. The first pack featuring Link was fantastic, and I can't wait to check out the Animal Crossing themed one come May of this year.
Number 3.
Bayonetta II. This will be a strange story for the record books. Remember when Nintendo saved the game where the sexy witch uses BDSM and stripper moves to violently destroy demons from hell? I never thought I'd see the day, but I am so glad I have. Bayonetta 2 is brutal, but if you like action titles, it is glorious. Bayonetta 2 does add a ton of color and over-the-top scenarios that make it an altogether more fun game than its original. It's all about creating concise combos with tons of primary and alternate weapon options, all while dodging at the last minute to enter a slow-motion bullet time. From a purely technical standpoint, it's one of the most engaging action games I've ever played. There's always a new weapon or action or costume to try, and the stakes just keep getting bigger and bigger. Plus, the online co-op play is really enjoyable, letting you test your combo ability against another player of varying skill levels. It's over the top in every way, and it might not be your cup of tea, but man, is Bayonetta 2 satisfying.
Number 2.
Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. I was skeptical of this game right out of the gates. I'll admit it, I've never been a big fan of Game Freak's remake games. I don't blame them for doing it, they'll always sell, but typically I'd rather get a new adventure than reliving one that I've already been a part of. But for some reason, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire was able to crack my cynical core and simply remind me why I love Pokemon games so much. Maybe it's the change in visuals, but Hoenn is a pure joy to visit again, and it offers a ton of fun new modes that make it feel better than ever. Being able to fly around the world in real space is breathtaking, and the ability to fly to individual routes as well as towns is a huge time saver. At its core, it's more Pokemon. You catch them, battle them, save the world, and then maybe scratch the surface to the ridiculous depth of competitive battling. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire adds a few new Mega Evolutions and attacks to the mix, but there isn't really anything that changes the game's formula much. I can't quite explain it, but it's the first time in a while I've played a Pokemon title that gives me reason to keep coming back every day. There's always a new Mirage spot or a new secret base. Am I inadvertently giving in to our Game Freak overlord's desire to remake all the old Pokemon video games? Maybe. But honestly, I came in expecting to enjoy this one a little less than usual, and now I can't stop playing it.
Number 1.
Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U. There really isn't anything more Nintendo than Super Smash Bros. Every time a new one drops, it's an event. This year was a first for the series because we got it both portably and on home console. And while the Wii U version is obviously the better one, the 3DS still comes with a fun exclusive Smash Run mode and plenty of great unique stages. My real favorite game experience this year came from the Wii U version, but it just doesn't feel right putting the same game on this list twice. I'm already super biased. I love fighting games to their core, but Smash Bros. Is more than a fighting game. It's quite possibly the greatest game for gathering people together that I've played in a long time. The new 8-player mode is hectic and wonderful. The new roster additions are creative, the new stages are gorgeous, the soundtrack is the best and biggest I have ever heard. There's just so much to do in this game. The amount of modes is ridiculous. Even if you don't like one of them, it's almost impossible to grow bored because there's always a different way that you can play. There's just so much to say about these games, and I have said it in 2 full video reviews. But it all boils down to this. Super Smash Bros. Is very fun. It is the most fun I had playing a video game this year. And in the end, that's all that really matters. Thanks for watching this year in review. Hopefully you were all able to enjoy Nintendo's new games as much as I was. Just recently I've been able to add fully fledged reviews of new games to this channel. I wasn't able to cover some of the older games on this list, but if you want to hear more of my thoughts on some of the games that came out this past year, you can check them out right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all over the rest of 2015. You've made it known that you'd like to see more top 10s and facts of the day, and there will be plenty more of those to come over the rest of this year.